watching the Kings-Bulls game and see they still got the pizza guy ads. Do they have a new pizza guy? LOL.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. 7 games on in the NBA on Tuesday. Some interesting performances, a lot we need to talk about, injuries, and then we look to preview a big 10-game slate for Wednesday. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed. We will start by looking at the Detroit Pistons absolutely spanking the Cleveland Cavaliers, 127-94. Andre Drummond, he almost got a 5x5. 17 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 steals, and 4 blocks. The field goal percentage wasn't great, just 47%, but that's a fantastic line from Drummond, whose recent production had been a little bit under. Good to see those assists there and the points back up. Griffin looked better than he'd looked for a while, but all the minutes in this game were pretty much reduced. 24 minutes to Griffo only, 24 points with 6 triples. His assists still continue to be troublingly low. At least he shot the ball better, but it's still something to watch for Griffin as we move forward. The Duck Luke Kennard, 8-4-4 in his 22 minutes. Derek Rose had 12-2-9 in his 22 minutes. It's something I talked about with Rose, I think, yesterday on the show, talking about how his upside is a little bit limited when we talk about him because whenever it's a sign of a blowout, he just gets pulled. And that's exactly what happened here. The Shark, Bruce Brown, had 9-2-3, while Tone Snell had one of his better games, 2 points with 3 rebounds in 22 minutes. Markieff Morris did hurt his neck in this one, but was able to return to action, 12-5 for Markieff. I better mention Svi Mykhailiuk, who had 15-2-4, one of his better performances, but of course, we can't take anything out of it because he played 26 minutes in an absolute ass-kicking. For the Cavs, the Padawan Colin Sexton, 22-4-3, at least he gave us 2 steals. That's not a bad line overall. We know his limitations. I don't think they're ever changing, but occasionally we get these peripheral type games, which this one was sort of there. 27 minutes for Larry Nance, 7-4-5 with 2 blocks. Now, before we get overly interested in this from Nance, and it's good, Kevin Love played 22 minutes. Nance played 10 first half minutes because the Muppet John Henson was back. So if this game was remotely close, Love doesn't play 22 minutes. Love plays 32 minutes. So where do those minutes come from? Well, they have to come from Nance. Not all of them, but most of them. So I am still holding Nance, but this is not an indication. Oh, everyone's back. Nance is still playing his 27. This is not an indication of that. If anyone wants to buy him as a top 60 guy, I would sell him off because I am really worried about where this goes from here. As for Love, 8-2-4, woof. 8-4-2 with 2 triples. While Kevin Porter, 12-7 in 22 minutes is pretty strong. We still got 30 minutes of Tristan Thompson, just what everybody needs. The Muppet was back, John Henson, 14 minutes, 2-2-2. Straight back into the rotation. I've already mentioned the carry-on effect that's going to have on Nance. While Chetty Osman was piss poor, 10 points in 26. Garland was more pissier and more poorer, 7 points in 28 minutes for Garlo. He will be a fantasy standard guy consistently at some point this season, I think. It's not here yet. He's really only a luxury stash type of a guy. If you can't afford it, piss him off. I don't think you're missing all that much as we move forward during the season. The next game for us to look at, we have got the Orlando Magic and the Washington Wizards. Evan Fournier's ridiculous hot run continues. 31 points with 6 triples. 61% shooting, 25% usage. Really fantastic numbers from Fournier. That sort of usage, that sort of efficiency will not continue. He is a massive sell high guy if you have that ability to do it. Markelle Fultz should be rostered everywhere. 20 points, career high, 6 assists, 2 steals, 31 minutes most importantly. Should not be on a single waiver wire. If he is on your waiver wire, I need written note from your parents as to why you've let that happen. DJ Augustin, 24 points in 29 minutes, 6 rebounds and 4 triples. Strong game from Deej. I believe he went scoreless in the game before this, so I don't think we need to get too excited. While Mo Bamba.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Maybe he's just shit. It's possible. 4 and 8 in 16 minutes, no blocks. That's under 20 minutes for 3 consecutive games, even with Vucevic out. He's looking more Hasheem Thabeet than Joel Embiid at this point. look, hard to keep him in a 12-teamer. Birch had no points, but 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 blocks, and he's clearly the better player there. Birch remarkably took 1 shot in this game. That's hard to do. Aaron Gordon, one of his better performances, 18 and 11, but as usual, 2 assists, no steals, no blocks. It really does limit his value. Well, Johnny Isaac, 11, 6, and 3. The efficiency just wasn't there with John. Carter Williams returned. He got smacked in the nose and had to leave with a bloody nose. That I don't think is going to be too much of a long-term concern. For the Wizards, we'll talk about it now, but Tom Bryant has a stress reaction in his foot. He is going to be reevaluated in at least 3 weeks. I am thinking 6 weeks is my estimation for Bryant. That makes him pretty tough to roster without an injured reserve slot. What you want to do is go and add Flaming Mo Wagner. Actually, let's refresh that. First of all, you add Davis Bertans. He's a must-roster guy and has been for weeks. He had 21 points, 4 triples, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. Bertans. Must-roster. Wagner didn't play in this game, so we got 40 Bertans minutes. We got 39 Rui Hachimura minutes, 15, 6, and 4. You know what I think of Hachimura, but if he's going to be playing these minutes, and with Wagner out, he's going to be playing a shit ton because there are no other centers on this roster. He is a rosterable guy because he will bludgeon his way into 12-team value, especially for points leagues. So your priority is Bertans, it's Wagner, it's Hachimura. All 3 of those blokes are 12-team ads with the Bryant injury. Now, I shit on Isaiah Thomas the other day. He came out and absolutely blew up. 20 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal, and a block. Fantastic. Easily his best performance as a starter so far this season. The weird thing is the fact that Bryant and Wagner were out. That boosted Thomas's minutes. Now, that seems dumb when your center's out. Why does your point guard play more? Because it means that Ish Smith plays more at the 2, Bradley Beal plays more at the 3, Troy Brown plays more at the 4, Bertans and Hachimura play more at the 5. Everybody has to push up a position. So we're getting more of those 2 and 3 guard, 2-point guard, 3 guard lineups in total. More Jordan McRae at the 4 type of situations, and that helps Thomas. So that is a factor here. When Wagner returns, you get a little bit taken off the top of Bertans, of Hachimura, of Thomas, of McRae. All of those guys lose a little bit of playing time in that situation. If you want to take a flyer on Thomas, by all means, this is one game out of 15 where he's been terrible. Troy Brown benched for Isaac Bonga. Bonga had 2 and 6 in his 17. Brown had 5 and 8 with 2 steals. Pretty much exactly what they were doing in the reverse roles before that, so nothing to be overly interested in there. While Geordie McRae in those deeper leagues, 2 steals, 2 triples, 10 points, 16 teamers. I think you got to look at Geordie, who is available in 96% of leagues. Probably should mention Brad Beal, who had 42, 6, and 4. Of course, he played 42 minutes. When you're not going nowhere, you've always got to play your best player and just grind him into dust as much as possible. Shout out to Tom Bryant's stress reaction. The next game up for us here, we are looking at the Miami Heat, one of 2 overtime games on the day. Miami Heat against the Toronto Raptors. The Heat win 121-110 in the win. Jimmy Butler, 22, 13, and 12 in the overtime. Dunk Robinson, 27 minutes with 22 points and 6 triples. We know he can be a 3-point streamer, not a 12-teamer. With Dragic out, Tyler Hero played 18 minutes. If that's not an indication for you to drop his ass off to the bench, off to the waiver wire, in fact, I don't know what's going to convince you. He's gone. Kendrick Nunn, he played a lot. Probably wish he didn't. 7, 5, and 6, 19% shooting. The encouraging thing there is the minutes, and with Dragic out, that does help him maintain 12-team value. I would hold him over Hero in every situation. I don't think it lasts, but that was, the minutes are the most encouraging. As for Winslow, really strong from him, 17, 9, and 4. Probably worth at least seeing if you want to short-term hold him in a 12 while Dragic is out, because that does help him. Olynyk went from 6 minutes to 35 because, of course, 16 and 6, 3 triples, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. He was in my waiver wire show the other day, and then he pissed all over my reputation by playing 6 minutes, and then it bounced back. So he's going to be one of these guys. I think I did say that and have that caveat that the inconsistency with his playing time remains a complete bugbear throughout his entire career, and then that was highly illustrated in these next 2 games. He can be a 12-team league guy. Adebayo had 18 and 7, which is okay, but obviously not spectacular. For the Raps, Kyle Lowry was back. Nick Nurse, pre-game, we're going to try and keep those minutes down from where they were at the start of the season. Lowry's first game back, he played 41. He had 12, 6, and 11 with a steal and a block. He was fantastic from the field. 2 of 18. That doesn't piss all over your field goal percentage. I don't know what does. Give him a bit of a pass. That game would have been absolutely amazing had the shots gone in. He was also 8 of 8 from the line. 43 from Van Vliet, who also is allegedly having his minutes reduced by Nurse. He had 19 with 6 assists and 3 steals. And Norman Powell, 23 and 8, 4 triples and a steal. So what this is for Powell, this is your absolute sell high time. Mate, John, Steve-O, Lowry's back. He still played 34 minutes. He still scored 23 points. This bloke is a stud. How can you not be a stud? You have to have something going for you if you're going through your life and your name is Norman. There's got to be something good. And look at that, 23 points in 34 minutes. Bang. Now, I don't believe that, but this is your ammunition to do it. Lowry's back. Look how much he still played. Sell it. Get rid of it. Let's move on. Now, he got those extra minutes because the Jedi, OG Anunoby,
hello there,
only played 21. I'm still holding Anunoby. Siakam also wasn't that great. 15 points on 14 shots, while Marc Gasol.
oh hi Mark.
Offensive juggernaut Marc Gasol, 14 points with 2 threes in 33 minutes with Ibaka back. I'm still holding Gasol in 12s. I don't think it's going to last all season. Ibaka himself had 13 and 9, which is fine, but his minutes are a real issue. Hollis Jefferson played 17 and Terry Davis played 15. They are the guys that did lose out there, with Kyle Lowry returning to action. Let's look at the next game up here. It is the Dallas Mavericks taking on the New Orleans Pelicans. The Mavericks win 118-99. Let's go through it. Doncic, 28 minutes, 33, 18, and 5. Why not? 50 from the field, 77 from the line. Ridiculously good.
Giggity.
Wrong button.
Percentages.
There you go. Kristaps, only 18 minutes. Got into foul trouble. He blocked 5 shots in that time. He shot only 18% from the field and had 7 and 6. But this might be a blessing in disguise. Maybe he can play in the back-to-back now because he played so few minutes here on Tuesday. Timmy Hardaway, the wheels have fallen off a bit. 12 points, 2 triples in 25 minutes. This is the thing with him when I talked about him as an option. Hey, the minutes are there, add him, maybe not. It's all going to come down to hot shooting. The shooting's not hot anymore. The production's stinky. So it's not that interesting. Well, Seth Curry got hot. 19 with 5 triples. Not easy to rely upon him. Delon Wright wasn't as good as he was against the Lakers, but if you just lop off the points column where he had 5 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, and a block with a 3 is a pretty bloody good night. He's a strong 14-team league guy, and he's a watch for your 12s. Dwight Powell couldn't keep it up either. 6 and 4 in his 26. For the Pelicans, Ingram, 24, 5 and 6 with 3 triples. The 3-point shooting is starting to fall off, but the impressive thing are the free throw attempts and the percentage. 100% from the line, 7 of 7. Really strong on his 2s. Continues to play well. Now, I do think it's going to drop still a little bit, but he has been significantly improved quite clearly this season. Josh the Hitman Hart, 11 and 6 with 3 triples in 27 minutes. It does help that both Derek Favors and Kendrick Williams are out. That does help Hart. He is not a must-roster 12-team league guy, while Lonzo was really poor in this game. 6 points, 2 of 12 shooting, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. I wouldn't be stunned at some point this season if he loses the starting job. If he can string together 4 or 5 good games in a row, I would consider selling off. He just is struggling a lot at the moment. It's not great. Holiday had 18, 4 and 4, not his best night, while Redick dropped in 12, 6 and 4 with 2 triples. And this is a more realistic JJ Redick expectation, which leaves him right on the fringe of 12-team formats, in my opinion. This next game should get your absolute fantasy juices rolling. The double overtime victory by the San Antonio Spurs over the Houston Rockets, 135-133. Harden had 59 and 6 with 4 steals on a horrible 29% shooting, but of course he was a perfect 24 of 24 from the line. He played 49 minutes. Capella had 22 and 21 with 2 blocks on 9 of 9 shooting in 45 minutes. And PJ Tucker played 52 minutes. 10 and 9, 3 steals, 2 triples, 2 blocks. A good game from Tucker, who provides that low-end value without doing anything exciting. Now, with Danny House out, Benny McLemore started. He played 27 minutes and missed most of the second half with an eye laceration, so he had 11 points. So Austin Rivers stepped up, 40 minutes for Rivers, 19 and 4 with 5 triples. So you look at that and go, oh, do I add Rivers? Well, if we're expecting House and McLemore to miss time moving forward, then sure. But we're not, so no. It's important to look at those things. Westbrook was horrible. 30 shots he took. 30. And still, Harden had a bad night and Westbrook still shot worse, 23%. Had a triple-double though, so 19, 10, and 10 with 2 steals and a block, and then very, very little else happening with that Rockets team. But probably the fantasy story of the night is Lonnie Walker. Into the rotation, finally, took over from Marco Bellinelli and played 35 minutes. Now, there's a couple of things to say here. He can take minutes off Bryn Forbes very easily. Marco Bellinelli, no worries. Damari Carroll, of course. Pat Mills, maybe. Like, there are plenty of options for him to get to 25, 26 minutes a night easily. Easily. This was a great performance. 28 points, 4 triples, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, and a block from Lonnie Walker. Now, he had 5 fouls in that time, a really high 27% usage. Is this the high point for Walker? I don't think he's a very well-rounded fantasy guy. He's not an assist guy. The defensive stats normally aren't there. He's not a high rebounder. He's not normally a great free throw shooter. He's not normally a great field goal percentage guy. This, to me, screams go and add in 14s, 16s, 18s, anything. Even in a 12-team league, when you see a guy do this, and you know there's hype about the guy, and you can see the path to the minutes, I'd even consider grabbing him in a 12-team league. But I would also grab him and then see if I could trade him off. Because you might find someone that really believes, because they love someone who puts up points, and that's what Walker is. They don't love Jordan Clarkson, but that's what Walker is. And that does give you maybe some sell-high ability. But I think he's going to be in the rotation. I think he's going to take the Bellinelli minutes. I think he's going to cut out playing time from other guys and hover in that 20 to 24 minute a night role. And that's going to be useful. But this, to me, feels high watermark-ish. Been talking at length about DeMar DeRozan and how his 50% field goal percentage wasn't going to stick. He had 23, 5, and 9 on 36% shooting. Still a pretty good line, but that's what was going to happen there. While Forbesy had 25 with 5 triples. The point guards. Oh, actually, one more thing. This goes for all Spurs. The Spurs don't play again until Friday, and then they don't play again until the following Thursday. That is rough. That is 2 games in the next 9 days. So if you're adding Walker, if you're adding Jakob Poeltl, who had 15 boards, 5 assists, 1 steal, and 5 blocks in 41 minutes, you're not going to be able to use him much. Now, I think Poeltl has... Look, that is high upside for Poeltl. I don't think he's ever getting 41 a night. The Aldridge injury obviously helps him here. It helps Walker too a little bit as well. But Poeltl does have back-end value. He's available in 87% of leagues. He should be rostered in all 14 teamers. No doubt about that. Significantly better than Trey Lyles, who was all right himself here. But again, they're not playing for so long. And the fact that they're out for so long, the Spurs, how do you keep holding DeJounte Murray? 18 minutes, 7, 5, and 2, 2 steals. Let me put this out. I might have put it out before. Maybe, if we really think about it, maybe he's not that good. Maybe he isn't as good as everyone told us he was going to be. He's a freak. Unbelievable. He's a late first-round point guard. Maybe he's just not that good. It's a real possibility. The shooting has disappeared. Steal rate's fine. Doesn't hit threes. Assists are low. He rebounds well. Maybe he isn't that good. Derek White had 12 points and 3 assists. And if they're going to split minutes, again, how can we justify holding White and Murray? Especially if Walker's now poking his nose into the rotation. There just isn't enough playing time for these guys to even play together enough to be useful. I reckon hard decisions have to be made, and in 10s, I'd cut White and Murray, and I'm pretty bloody close in 12s. In fact, in some situations, if I'm struggling, I reckon you might have to make that move, unfortunately. Let's move on to the next game. The LA Lakers, they beat the Nuggets 105-96 on the road. My man,
LeBron James.
He was great. 25, 6, and 9. Hit all 6 of his free throws. While Rajon Rondo also had a big game. 11, 6, and 6. Now, Rondo is hitting his threes at a remarkably high level. There is going to be some regression there, no doubt. But his ability to get assists does provide 12-team value. He is not a must-roster player. If you need assists, he can give it to you. But he is a low-upside specialist type guy. Tone Davis had 25 and 10. Let's check in on the future MVP, Kyle Kuzma, 6 points in 19 minutes. Again, if you want to talk about blokes that just aren't good, he's one of them. He had his trombone blown quite a bit by Lakers fans, by the media. He just is not that good, and I cannot stress enough, if he is on your 12-team league, get him out of there. There's no need for it. Dwight Howard can go. JaVale McGee can go. This is a team with just such little fantasy value. It's LeBron, it's Davis, and then it's Green and Rondo, maybe? It's a stream of McGee. It's a stream of Howard. There's just nothing. It's a really weird-looking team, but hey, they are the best in the NBA. Let's look at the Denver Nuggets. The Blue Arrow had 22, 5, and 5, 2 steals and a block. Great from him. While Paul Millsap maybe was aided by Grant's illness, but he had been really poor the last couple. Bounce back. 21 and 8, a steal, a block, 2 dribbles. I would try and sell high on Millsap. Top 70 if you can. Big Chungus, Nikola Jokic started off slowly, ended up slightly less slowly. 13, 5, and 8 with 3 steals. Just continues to be annoyingly bad and frustrating. You can buy real low on him. I'm talking maybe even outside the top 50, and I would do it. Jeremy Grant, not a 12-teamer, obviously 5 points. While Farton Will Barton, he'd been pretty good this season. He wasn't. Here, 5 points on 11 shots, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Let's give him a pass. While Gaz Harris.
Nice, Gary!
Remember that big game he had the other day? Yeah, that's in the rearview mirror. 9-1-0. Not a 12-teamer. I would very, very happily drop Big Gazza in those 12-team leagues if you did go run and pick him up. Now, on to the last game of the night. The LA Clippers hosted the Portland Trailblazers. Predictably, it was a pretty comfortable victory for the Clippers, 117-97. Hassan Whiteside.
The world.
Still putting up good numbers, 18 and 13. I don't think Yusuf Nurkic is returning and taking really any value away from Whiteside this season. McCollum had 20 points. Lillard, he's struggling a little bit at the moment. 16 points with 7 assists in only 30 minutes. But again, the minutes are down for everyone because it was this much of an ass-kicking. Anthony Simons played 31 minutes, 11 points with 6 assists. And let's check in on Carmelo Anthony, who didn't get an opportunity to beat up on the Chicago Bulls. He had 9 points on 9 shots in 28 minutes with 6 rebounds. This is why I wanted to see this game. Not because I hate Melo. You're such a hater. Because when you play against shit defenses and you play well, that's great. But let's see how you go in these other games. And he did struggle here. He is a points streamer type of a guy for 12-teamers. He's fine in 14-team leaguers, but he's not this must-roster, unbelievable free agent find, the greatest thing you're ever going to see, because he's not playing the Bulls every night. And playing the Bulls every night is a great opportunity to put up numbers. Shout out to Paul Washington Jr. So Melo, struggled. Unsurprisingly, it is. But there's a difference. You go to one of the best defensive teams in the NBA from one of the worst, and you're going to fall somewhere in between the two of them. Nice defensive night from Bazemore. 9 points with 2 triples, but 2 steals and 3 blocks. He's really fallen off of late. Hard to get too excited about him, while Rocket Rodney Hood, only a deeper league guy. The Clippers were without JaMychal Green, so Paddy Patterson had to play 26 minutes, and he went off. 19 points, 8 rebounds, 5 triples. Reed absolutely 0 into this, but it was strong to see. 29 minutes for Paul George for 25 points. Paddy Beverly had 11, 4 and 3, and the fun guy Kawhi Leonard had 11, 9 and 5. And the shooting has been off for him outside of last game, and he was just at 20% in this game. Lou Williams also struggled, 9, 4 and 7. Williams is starting to come back down to that level that I thought he might be at once we get full power Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in the lineup. Again, this game was just that out of hand pretty early on, really, that we got a lot of garbage time and minutes were just pushed down all over the place, making it relatively hard to read what's happening throughout the game. All right, let's have a look at some injury news. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but Thomas Bryant with the stress reaction in his foot. Go back to the Wizards game if you want to hear my takes there. You go and add Bertans, you add Flaming Mo Wagner, and you add Rui Hachimura. They're all 12-team league options now. I think Bryant is a drop without an injured reserve spot. D'Angelo Russell looking to return to action on Wednesday. That's going to really hurt the lubricant Kai Bowman, maybe Alec Burks as well. Alan Crabb has had another surgery on his knee. He's in 0 fantasy leagues, but it does just take those minutes that he was stealing away from other people that maybe it helps Herter and Reddish and Hunter and Bembry and all those guys as we move forward. Reggie Jackson at least another 2 weeks away for Detroit. He is not a 12-team league pickup, while Brandon Clark is now joining fellow rookie Ja Morant on the sidelines with a week-to-week diagnosis. He's dealing with an oblique injury. I think he is a drop in 12-team formats. I'd say 2 to 3 weeks is my initial estimate here for Clark. With this injury, that does help Solomon Hill for deeper leagues. It helps Valanciunas be able to stay with those high minutes, and he is absolutely tearing assholes apart at the moment with it. Well, when he's not ill, putting those big numbers up. So they are the injury news there. And let's, one more thing to talk about is a marginal update on Zion Williamson. I think it was Doris Burke that reported it. Maybe it was Rachel Nichols, but said that the Pelicans, he's not going to be back within that initial 6 to 8 week timetable. They're going to be extremely cautious, and I would be looking at January, early January, as a return now for Zion, not Christmas. So probably pushing 2 weeks out from that initial return date. For those of you that have him or are looking to pick him up, we're probably looking to push it out another couple of weeks, would be my guess on Williamson at this point. Let's flip it over. Now we've got 10 games coming up for DFS. We're going to be looking at DraftKings pricing for Wednesday. So let's get stuck into those. All right, let's look at this first game now for Wednesday, a busy Wednesday. We're looking at the Phoenix Suns traveling to take on the Orlando Magic. The Magic on a back-to-back, and the Suns are 1.5-point favourites on the road. The total is 215 here. Aaron Baines has been ruled out for Phoenix. Check Diallo, who missed last game with an illness. He is upgraded to probable. I assume Frank Kaminsky gets the start, but we saw in those previous 2 games, Diallo outplayed Kaminsky. Kaminsky was shit last game as well, so there is another chance for Check to jump back up there. For the Suns, Rubio is also questionable. If he is out, look for Tyler Johnson, Ty Jerome, Ali Okobo to, I think, pretty much split those minutes, although Okobo was out of the rotation last game. He played pretty well before that situation occurred. At point guard, DJ Augustin's at 4,100, had an absolute monster against the Wizards with 35 points. That was one of his better games all season, so I wouldn't be relying too heavily on that. While Markelle Fultz at 5,700, he is giving us 30 a night consistently. If you're giving me 30 a night and you're priced at under 6,000, then you are 100% a cash guy, and that's exactly what Fultz is. Booker is at $8,000. I think that's okay for him. He hasn't quite been blowing us away, but that's pretty solid at that price. Rubio at 67, I don't want to deal with if he's questionable with a hand issue. Jerome at 32 would be the interesting upside play, I think, if Rubio is out. At shooting guard, Fournier absolutely crushing it. He's at 6,500. He's averaging 37 over his last 5. The back-to-back, the hot shooting, all of those things make me think that this is a bit of a fade situation for Fournier, so I'm not super into him. Terry Ross, McCall Bridges. Now, Bridges is an interesting one. 32 points, 30 minutes last game. Really stepped it up. If Rubio's out, that might help him even further. At 3,800, he's at least someone who is in the tournament pool. For your small forwards, Johnny Isaacs at 68, I don't like that. Aaron Gordon at 59, much more interested in $1,000 less for Aaron Gordon. I would much prefer to use him over Isaac. While Oubre's at 65, I think he's also a relatively solid cash guy at this point. Šarić at 62, also big numbers, and with Baines out, that does help Šarić too, so he's an option. For your bigs, Kaminsky's at 55, 33 minutes last game with no Diallo or Baines, 29 points, he wasn't that good. I'm not married to him as an option, but I think we have to at least consider him. That salary is not too high. Birch is at 53. He's outplaying Mo Bamba every night. That's not a good DFS option, though, while Diallo at 38 had a 32-pointer the other night, so he is a GPP option, while Bamba is pretty tough to get excited about. Can't even crack 20 minutes, even with Vucevic on the sidelines. Let's move it on to the next game. We're looking at the Golden State Warriors and the Charlotte Hornets. Of course, the big question here is whether D'Angelo Russell is going to play. He's been upgraded to questionable with that thumb issue. Draymond Green is likely to return after resting last game. And Nick Batum is probable after suffering a finger issue. The Hornets are 5-point favourites, and the total is 208 here. Rozier is at 6,500. I think he's a relatively safe cash guy in a really positive matchup, while Devontae Graham at 7,700 also gives us 35 plus almost every night. Strong guys, both of those options. While Russell's at 8,500. A little bit tough to rely upon him first game back at such a high salary. Draymond's a point guard eligible player as well. He's at 6,200. The minutes limit on him is always the concern, so I think we can find better guys to go with there. Alec Burks, hard to see how he's interesting, while the lubricant Kai Bowman at 5,600 with Russell back, I imagine that his minutes and his production gets dropped down quite a bit. At shooting guard, you've got Glennie Robinson, who is tough to use, Jordy Poole similarly, and then you go to the small forwards where Miles Bridges comes in at 51. This is a good matchup for Bridges, so that would be, and that price is an option to use him, otherwise I wouldn't be keen, but that price is good. While 6,500 for Eric Pascal. The triangle dropped 44 last game. Russell and Green returned to the lineup, I think put a big handbrake on what he can do, so at that price, he's a fade. Marvin Williams also went bananas last time for Charlotte. I don't trust in that. At the big man spots, Kevon Looney's at 34. He's back, but I'm not interested. PJ Washington's at 47. Tournaments only. He is relatively inconsistent. Biyombo's starting over Zeller. Both guys are at 4,800, and that means I want neither of them. While Cauley Stein at 48 also, obviously, does not get me excited. I don't know what role Chris or Spellman are going to have in this rotation with Draymond Green returning. Next up, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Detroit Pistons. The Bucks have been absolutely just reaming people lately, and that has impacted their DFS production. Now, the Pistons also have been giving a rogering to their opponents, and they absolutely smacked the Cavs on Tuesday. They smacked the Spurs the other day, so hopefully they can at least keep it close here. It is a back-to-back. We don't know the status of Derrick Rose or Blake Griffin, who have rested some back-to-backs this season. I imagine Rose plays, and given how limited the minutes were for Griffo on Tuesday, I think he might be ready to go in this one. Brook Lopez has been upgraded to probable. He's missed the last 2 games for Milwaukee, while Sterling Brown is questionable. At point guard, Bledsoe's at 6,200, only for tournaments really, but again, all these Bucks guys, the production is so muted because of how few minutes they've played lately, so that is the concern when looking at recent numbers. I don't mind Bledsoe here. Derrick Rose at 55, look, maybe. I'm not super into Rose here with the back-to-back happening. George Hill, Langston Galloway, no thanks. I do like Chris Middleton at 6,100. He's been putting up close to 30 a night, even in a limited role. He's back starting. That's a strong spot for me. Tone Snell, no. Luke Kennard, 6,100. The Duck, too high. Bruce Brown, the Shark. Wes Matthews, Dante DiVincenzo, Sviatoslav Mikhailiuk, and Kyle Korver. I don't think we need to get excited about them. At small forward, it's always Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's at 11.8. He's still giving us 50-plus a night, even in 21 minutes. A real opportunity for a 60-plus here for Antetokounmpo if Detroit can keep it remotely competitive, so I do like him in this spot. And then on to the big men. Drummo, 8,900. He was an absolute monster on Tuesday, almost had 60. The matchup does suit him as well. I think that's a really strong price for Drummond, so I'm in on him. Lopez at 56 is okay, even in the nights where he's not playing well. He's still around 25, which is pretty solid. And then you go to Markieff Morris at 3,700, who is not good. Christian Wood, Ersan Ilyasova, Robin Lopez. None of those guys are interesting. Blake Griffin I should have talked about as well. He's at 6,600. That is really, really interesting as a GPP play. He dropped 33 today in 24 minutes, but of course, he has to play for that to come good and for him to be useful. The Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics is the next game up. The Heat coming off a really tough game against the Raptors, an overtime game, so could be some fatigue setting in for them. Boston is going to be without Marcus Smart. Miami is going to be without Goran Dragic. The Celtics are 5.5-point favourites. The total is 213. Now, last time that the Celtics were missing a key starter in Kemba Walker, we saw Tremont Waters step in and drop 20 points. He's a minimum salary guy. He maybe is a GPP guy, but there's also no guarantee he's even going to play here. Kemba's at 7,600. His production has been a little bit under, but for DFS it hasn't. He's been at 40 plus, so I like Kemba quite a bit here. Well, Wanamaker at 41 also, I think, has got a pretty solid floor with the absence of Smart. Justice Winslow's at 53, played much better against Toronto than he had previously with Dragic out. I think it helps him somewhat too. I think 53 gives him some GPP value. Kendrick Nunn, he's really hard to rely upon, only for tournaments. Carson Edwards, no thanks. At shooting guard, Jim Butler, love this price for Jimmy. 7,300 is delectable. I'm in on that, while Tyler Hero is at 4,400, only for tournaments. He was not at his best on Tuesday. Jalen's at 7,000 with Smart out. I think that does help Jalen a little bit, and he should be getting 35 plus in most situations. While Dunk Robinson, 45, another big game from Dunk against the Raptors. I'm not super looking forward to him as a great DFS play, though. For your small forwards, Tatum's at 7,900. He's been giving you pretty solid numbers there. Strong cash guy. Ojale, who I think is the expected starter in place of Smart, he is not an option. Derek Jones Jr. similarly. And then for the big men, Bam Bam Adebayo, 7,200.
Bam, 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 bam.
All right, so Bam Adebayo at that sort of a salary is probably okay. He's like a 40-point guy most nights. The matchup is a marginal negative against Tice, but I still think he's worth looking at. Kelly Olynyk is tough to predict. 30 minutes one night, 6 minutes the next night, so that's hard to use. Tice, Cantor, Leonard, Rob Williams, Chris Silver. I don't really think we could get all that interested in any of those guys. Next up, the Brooklyn Nets and the Atlanta Hawks. DeAndre Hunter is doubtful for Atlanta, but we might be seeing the return of Kevin Huerter, who is questionable from that shoulder issue. Kyrie is still out. At point guard, Trae Young, 10,400 for Youngie. Hasn't really been that the last couple, but at 10-4, I do like him in a relatively positive matchup against Spencer Dinwiddie. While DeAndre Bembry at 5,000, if we get both Hunter and Huerter not playing, then Bembry at 5,000 is going to be strong. I think he's still probably a strong option anyway. Reddish is never that. And Spence is at 8,200 Dinwiddie. I really, really like him here. He is putting up some pretty good numbers. For your shooting guards, Huerter's at 4,000, only for tournaments. Garrett Temple's at 52. I think we can find better priced players than him at 5,200. While Smoking Joe Harris at 57, that is one that I would spend up for over what Garrett Temple can do. For your small forwards, Jabari's at 64. Really bad from him in the last game. Only 28 minutes and 22 points. Yeah, is he worth looking at here? Yes. I'm not sold on it 100% though. Vince Carter, Torian Prince, 5,800 revenge game, maybe. I actually don't mind Prince as a cash play here. I think the upside's relatively limited. For your bigs, you got Damo Jones at 42, who dropped 29 on the Warriors. Now, that is the Warriors. It's a different story than playing the Nets, so he's worth at least considering. Jarrett Allen at 6,000. DeAndre Jordan around suppresses his ceiling, and the same goes for Jordan, who's at $5,000. Hard to utilize either of those guys in a DFS lineup and feel comfortable with it. The Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Sabonis Bowl. The Pacers are 1-point favorites. The total is 212 points. Jakar Sampson is doubtful for the Pacers. At point guard, Malcolm Brogdon's at 7,700. He just seems like he gives us 39 a night, so absolutely no worries with using him. Chris Paul's at 67. That is wild to see Paul priced so low. His recent numbers haven't quite been there. I think we can do better. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's at the same salary, 6,700. Again, I think there are better ways of spending that. 6,000 for Dennis Schroeder, about 1,000 too high. I'll fade that one. Aaron Holiday, TJ McConnell similarly. At shooting guard, Lamb is at 6,300. I really like the floor value for Lammy. He is putting up high 20s, low 30s most nights. That's really strong. Terry Ferguson is putting up high single digits, 7s and 8s. So pretty comparable. I don't think we need to look at Ferguson in any sort of format unless you're playing Bizarro DFS. Justin Holiday is putting up numbers, but at 4,300, I'm not sure about the upside. The Italian cock, the rooster, Danilo Gallinari.
Hands off my cock!
Hands off my cock, indeed. He is at 6,800. He has started to play better than what he was earlier in the season. Probably still more of a tournament guy, while Tony Warren Jr. is down at 5,500. Got into foul trouble last game, and then they bumped his salary down. So that at least gives him a marginal level of cash floor value, I believe. For the big men, Noel, no thank you. Sabonis, 83, love it. DeMontis is putting up numbers consistently, while Miles Turner is doing the opposite. Although Turner did have 32 last game, to be fair, not looking at him. Steve Adams, while you haven't been watching, Steve Adams is putting up some okay numbers. 34 points a game over the last 5. Still, the minutes are limited, and that's probably why I won't get too interested in him, but his production has started to ramp back up after a really disastrous beginning to this season. Next game, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Chicago Boylans. No spread out for this one. We know there's no Ja Morant. We know there's also no Brandon Clark, while Jonas Valanciunas is questionable for the Memphis Grizzlies. Valanciunas' status puts a lot of change on the value here. If he is out, Solomon Hill steps up. You've got someone like Bruno Caboclo maybe who could step up. Jaren Jackson Jr., if he stays out of foul trouble, it could be a monster from him. Kyle Anderson is also questionable. At point guard, Kobe White is at 4,700. He is an upside play. He dropped 38 against this team at the start of the season. He's worth looking at, while Dunn's at 45, likely to start again with Hutchison doubtful. If he gets 4 steals, then that value is pretty much toast already. So he's at least an option. While Satoransky, really strong floor, 5,200 for Thomas, and getting all those minutes that he deserves in a strong matchup. Zach LaVine is at $8,000. I think he's pretty good for 40 points most nights, so I do like LaVine here in this one. There's a ton of value, I think, in this matchup. While DeAnthony Melton at 46, he is absolutely crushing it. Do I want to trust him at a $1,200 price rise? That's really tough to do, but I don't dislike it. Tyus Jones at 52, I'm not massively keen on that. For your shooting guards, Dylan Brooks is at 57. He is getting the usage. He's providing some consistent numbers, which is not something I thought I'd say about him all that often, but he's doing it. So I think he's in play with Morant out. Denzel Valentine, Marko Guduric, no thank you. At small forward, Thad Young's at 4,000. That's a strong no. Jay Crowder at 5 is also uninspiring. Kyle Anderson, no thank you. While Solly Hill, he dropped 40. So if Valanciunas is out, Solly Hill at 4,700 absolutely has to be an option. At center, Bruno's at 3,700, maybe, but he only played 14 minutes with Clark and Valanciunas out last game. Gafford, no thank you. Lauri Markkanen at 56, beat that number convincingly, looked better, had averages 36 against this team the last 3 times he's played them. Triple J at 68. Both of those guys are tournament players for different reasons, fouls and shooting, but with Jackson and Markkanen respectively, but both options. Well, Wendell Carter at 65, I think that's probably priced a little bit too high for Wendell in this one. Next game up, the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks on a back-to-back. The Mavericks are 3.5 point favorites. The total is 232. We do not know whether Kristaps Porzingis is playing. He only played limited minutes on Tuesday against the Pelicans due to foul trouble. He sat out the first back-to-back the Mavericks played this season. This could be an option for him to play. We just don't know at this point, so it is worth monitoring. If he is out, you get that boost for Maxi Kleber. You get the boost for Dorian Finney-Smith, perhaps, for Dwight Powell also in that situation. Jake Layman has been ruled out for the Timberwolves, so Keita Bates-Diop gets another opportunity at solid minutes. At point guard, Doncic is at 11-6. Well, he's just giving you those numbers pretty much every single night. No hesitation in getting him involved. Delon Wright, a solid-ish game on Tuesday, but not one that I'm super into here. Well, Jeff Teague's at 57. I like Teague as an upside play here. The minutes are still there. The shot hasn't been good, but if it hits, then he's going to smash that value. Seth Curry also pretty strong on Tuesday. It is really hard to get excited about that. Well, Jarrett Culver cannot shoot, but he's still giving us 26 a night, which at 4,900, I think we have to be at least marginally invested, because if he has a night where the shot goes in, then that number gets smashed pretty comfortably. Napier and Brunson, no thank you. For your shooting guards, Timmy Hardaway only for tournaments. He's too inconsistent otherwise. Well, Andy Wiggins, 7,800. Love that. 40 a night comes from Wiggins most nights that he plays. Graham and Okogie, no thanks. Small forward, Covington's at 52, doing very, very little at the moment, but there is some tournament play with him. Finney Smith is not a guy that I care for, while Bates Diop at 45, probably priced a little bit too high. For your bigs, Porzingis is at 6,900.
Giggity.
Percentages.
Giggity.
Yeah, really hard to rely on that. We don't know he's going to play. We don't know what the minutes are going to be. I can't get behind that. I can with Towns at 10-6. He's strong. Doncic is the better high money play, but Towns is still pretty good there. Powell at 41 would be a great option if Porzingis is out. Same with Kleber at 38. I wouldn't want to use them both together, but they are strong GPP guys in that scenario where we do have KP sitting due to the back-to-back. Next game up is the Lakers and the Utah Jazz, another back-to-back here for the Lakers. The Jazz, who've been throttled in their last two against the Raptors and the Sixers, and now they take on the Lakers. I'm sure they're loving that. They are 2.5 point favourites, the Jazz. The total is 210. I guess they're favourites because it is a back-to-back for the Lakers, but that seems a weird line to set. The Lakers are also battling an illness that's going through the team, so that's worth mentioning. Mike Conley is out for Utah, making that spread look even more outrageous. Emmanuel Mudiay, who was almost out of the rotation, in fact, is averaging 5 points over the last three. There's a chance that he starts. He also may not start. They may go with Donovan Mitchell, putting Joe Ingles back into the starting lineup and leave Mudiay on the bench. But Mudiay at 32 is at least a tournament guy. Don Mitchell at 71, I love in all formats. And LeBron James at 10,000.
LeBron James.
10,000 just seems ridiculously cheap for LeBron, who gets 50 pretty much every night that he's out there. So, yeah, he is obviously a strong play there, probably second only behind Doncic in terms of value for those high-priced guys. Rondo, no thank you. Exum, Caruso, I can't see that either. KCP as a shooting guard, no thanks. Ingles at 49, absolutely we have to look at him. With Conley out, he should get an increased role. Dan Green, no thank you. Small forward, Royce O'Neal, 36. He's a GPP guy with Conley out. I think that you could at least see a 25 from him, which is fine at that salary. Bojan Bogdanovic at 61. Some of Conley's usage will probably funnel his way as well. While the future MVP, Kyle Kuzma at 39. That price is really interesting. The player isn't. The price is maybe for a tournament. Onto your bigs. Gobert's at 7,500. Really, really like that price for Gobert. Should be able to put up pretty significant numbers. 40 plus is in play. Howard and McGee, no thanks. Anthony Davis at 9,400. That is ridiculously low for Davis. I think that he is a pretty strong option along with LeBron James on this slate of games. Let's look now at the last game of the night. The Sacramento Kings, the Portland Mallows. The Blazers are favored by 3. This is the Caleb Swanigan-Scalabissiere revenge game. The total is 218.5, and Bogdan Bogdanovic has appeared as questionable on the injury report, which again, the NBA is horrible at managing hamstring injuries. This bloke's hamstring is not right. Sit him out. I don't know how this is complicated at all. This is not complicated. Now, if he is out, you're going to get big doses of Trevor Ariza, which should push that spread significantly into Portland's favour. You're probably going to get Justin James stepping up there, 40 minutes of Bud Hield, and a lot of Corey Joseph, which just makes for a spectacular basketball. Speaking of Joseph, he's at 4,500. No. Damian Lillard's at 81. I like that price for Dame against this Kings team, while McCollum's at 6,900.
Giggity.
I think that's a pretty strong option there for him as well. Anthony Simons, I don't really see the opportunity really appearing there for him. At shooting guard, Bud at 7,400. If Bogdan's out, I really like it, so he's a strong tournament play. Bogdanovic, no thanks. Bazemore, Hood, very little interest in those guys. Onto your small forwards, the pencil, Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. He's at 5,800, and he's been around that mark most nights. And if Bogdan is out, I do think that he is a relatively strong option here. While Melo's at 6,200, that price is pushing up pretty high for Carmelo. But he's been playing pretty well, we know that. Probably still more tournaments, though. Trevor Ariza, God no. At the big men spots, Rashawn Holmes at 67. You love when big men go up against Hassan Whiteside. So we're looking at a 35-pluser here for Holmesy. While Whiteside himself at 76, really strong price for Hassan, so I do like him as an option here too. If we flick it over onto FanDuel and just have a look at some options that I like. Kaminsky and Moutier, those cheaper type fill-in starter players. Hardaway, Mitchell, Diallo, Holmes, McCullum, Middleton, Jackson, that's Jaren, Porzingis, Barnesy, Bojan Bogdanovic, Trae Young, Townsy, and Nemanja Bjelica is also a good option. That'll do it for me today, guys. Subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and on YouTube. Give me a comment down below. A 5-star rating would also be excellent, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.